The front door creaked open on its own. They'd left it unlocked for guests. But I wasn't expecting him to arrive early. Not the one with balloons. Not the one with a camera. The one with that envelope in his coat pocket, already creased like it had been handled too many times. He looked around the living room, smiled like he owned it. The clock above the fireplace ticked once, and in that second I knew this wouldn't be the kind of birthday people remembered for the cake. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Bernard, I'm 70 years old, and this is what really happened. The music was soft jazz, low enough that the clinking glasses could still be heard. Someone in the kitchen was laughing. My youngest granddaughter, I think. She has this little habit of covering her mouth when she giggles. Always did. Candles flickered along the buffet. My wife's old copper chafing dish sat beside the new salad bowl my daughter-in-law brought last year. Funny, one held memory. The other still had the price tag underneath. Dad, you sure you don't want to sit down? That was my daughter, Lacey. God bless her. Always watching over me like I was the child now. I nodded but didn't move. My chair, the big creaky one near the front window, didn't feel right yet. I needed to stand a bit longer, let the air settle. That's when I heard the car door. Not the regular thump. This was sharp. Voices followed, muffled, one deep, one higher pitched and clipped. His wife, no doubt.
I didn't look. I listened.
Shoes on gravel. The pause by the porch step. Then the swing of the door I mentioned earlier. And then his voice. Happy birthday, Dad. He never used to call me that in public. Only Pops or Big B when others were around. Always something lighter, more casual, like calling me Dad meant there was a weight to carry. But today, he wanted witnesses. Thanks for coming, Colin, I said loud enough for the room to hear. He handed me a small white envelope. Didn't even dress it up with a bow. Colin, hope it helps with the retirement stuff. Retirement stuff. Like I hadn't been retired for 6 years already. I took the envelope. It was light, too light. Inside, one check, made out to me, signed, and with a number that made my ears ring. I've seen grocery receipts that felt more generous. I didn't say a word, just nodded. Behind him, his wife Mandy smiled like they just donated a wing to a hospital. Colin, you always said it's the thought that counts, right? There it was. That tone, wrapped in innocence, tied in arrogance. I walked slowly to my chair, the creak echoing through the room like an old wooden truth. Everyone watched, but no one said a thing. Because what do you say when a son insults his father with a check missing more than just a few zeros? You sit, you smile, and you let the room pretend. But my hand? It reached under the seat cushion, pulled out a manila envelope of my own.
Not thick,
but heavy with meaning. Colin didn't notice. He was already laughing with his cousins near the photo wall. The one with a framed picture of my wife holding baby Colin on the porch swing. Later, while the others gathered for dessert, I stepped out back. The wind carried the sound of forks against plates. Someone said my name, but I didn't turn. That's when I heard it. From the open kitchen window, Colin's voice, low but not low enough. Colin, did you see his face? Thought I'd handed him a golden goose? Laughter. Mindy, it's not our job to fund his hobby projects. He's lucky we showed up. Colin, exactly. He should be thanking us for making the time. God knows the old man didn't earn it. Then,
Another voice.
male, young, uncertain. Greg, you know this mic's been hot since dinner, right? Silence. Then forks. Then footsteps. I turned, just as Colin stepped out the back door. His smile had changed. No more teeth, just tight lips and searching eyes. Colin, you heard? Me, all of it. He looked down at the envelope still in my hand. And for a flicker of a second, his face changed. You know, I recorded this whole thing too. Not because I don't trust you, but because I stopped trusting your intentions 5 years ago. Colin, Dad, come on. You were just revealing what you thought I'd never hear. I handed him the envelope. He looked confused. Colin, what's this? Me read it. Not out loud. Just read. He opened it. Eyes scanning. Brow creasing. First page. Second. His hand began to tremble. May, that's the trust certification in the revision document. Colin, you're changing it? Me, I already did. The wind blew again. Inside, someone clapped for the cake. But out here, everything was unraveling quietly. Colin didn't say a word. He folded the papers with care. Then, still holding them, walked back in. I stayed outside, let the sound of celebration wash over the truth. One man's insult, another man's answer, and one small device, still recording in my coat pocket. Colin didn't come back outside. Not after that. But I didn't need him to.
I already knew what it's seen.
Page 2 of the trust revision, notarized, dated 6 months ago. 6 months. That's how long it took me to stop pretending he'd come around. I stepped back in through the side door. The smell of buttercream frosting hit me first. Sweet, thick, almost nauseating. Lacey was lighting the candles. My granddaughter was singing something off-key, and the others were laughing along. Colin was by the drinks table, whispering something to Mandy. She wasn't smiling this time. My daughter saw me and motioned. Lacey, Dad, come sit. We're about to do the cake. I walked slowly, on purpose, letting each step draw eyes. Colin didn't meet mine. When I reached the table, I paused. Everyone hushed. The candles flickered, and for just a second, the smell of smoke overpowered the sugar. I leaned toward the cake, all 70 candles. The heat brushed my face, but my voice didn't waver. Before we blow these out, I want to say something. Chairs shuffled, cups were lowered. Me. I know birthdays are supposed to be about joy, family, celebration. But sometimes, they show you what's missing. I didn't look at Colin. I didn't need to. Me. So today I want to thank the people who never stop showing up for who I am, not what I have. My voice was steady.
But my hand.
It rested gently on the shoulder of the man next to me. A man no one had really noticed until now. Dorian, my godson, Lacey's cousin, Colin's second cousin, technically, quiet, thoughtful, always around, but never loud. Dorian had flown in 2 days early. Stayed at a hotel. At my request, he handled things quietly, with a skill Colin never cared to learn. Trust, paperwork, filing. Dorian had been the witness, the second signer, the one who helped me untangle the mess, and now the one holding a copy of the very revision Colin had just read. I turned slightly toward him. Me, you've done more for this family's legacy in 6 months than some have in 70. Dorian nodded once. Didn't smile. Didn't speak. He didn't need to. Mandy shifted in her seat. Mindy, wait, what are you talking about? Colin grabbed her arm gently. Colin, let it go. But Mandy never could. Mindy, no. If you're saying what I think you're saying. Lacey, Mandy, this isn't the time. Mandy, isn't it? Because it sounds a lot like you're cutting your own son out of something.
I looked at her now.
Full on. Let the silence build again. Me, you handed me a check today, Mandy. A gift that told me exactly how you see me. How little you think I matter. Colin, it wasn't like that. Me, and that's fine, you're allowed to feel that way. But I'm allowed to protect what matters. The candles still burned, dripping onto the frosting now. My granddaughter whispered, should we sing? But no one moved. I finally blew them out. The room exhaled. Smoke rose, faint, bitter, almost metallic under the sugar. And then, from behind me, a soft click. The phone said on the table. Dorian pressed play. The audio wasn't long. 22 seconds. Colin's voice. Then Mandy's. Then Greg's warning. Everyone heard it. Even my youngest grandson, who didn't know what the words meant, just that the tone wasn't right. When it ended, Dorian slid the phone back into his pocket. He didn't look at Colin. Lacey broke the silence. Lacey, I think we should cut the cake now. But no one moved. Mandy stood. Mandy, you can't do this. You're manipulating the family. Dorian. The documents were filed. County clerk, 2 notarized copies. 1 in the safety box. 1 with me. Me and 1 with my lawyer, who's also here. If you'd like to speak with someone in a suit. Colin didn't rise. Didn't speak. His shoulders sagged, just slightly, like something had gone out of him. I stepped away from the cake. Walked toward the bookshelf. Pulled down a frame. It was the last photo we took as a full family. My wife still alive. My son, younger, proud. I held it for a moment, then turned it face down, and walked out again. The back porch smelled of lilacs and old paint. Someone had left a window open upstairs. I could hear the faucet running. But I wasn't listening for sounds now, just remembering a scent. The one that used to cling to my wife's scarves. Something floral, something warm. She'd hated conflict, but she would have stood with me today. I sat in the rocker, Dorian joined me after a while. We didn't speak for several minutes. The wind stirred the bushes. Finally, he said, Dorian, you want me to stay the night? No, go be with your girl. I'll be fine. Dorian, you sure? Yeah, I was sure the moment you stepped in the room.
He nodded.
Stood, paused.
Dorian,
You know, I always admired how you handled people. Yeah, I stopped handling them. I just started seeing them. He walked off the porch, down the gravel, past Colin's expensive rental car. Inside, someone turned the music back on. The party didn't recover, but it didn't fall apart either. It just shifted. People who knew better stayed quieter. People who never really saw me left earlier than planned. And Colin, he stayed in the living room, didn't speak much. Didn't meet my eyes when I walked back in to hug my granddaughter goodbye. But I caught the smell of his cologne, strong, acidic, trying to cover something up. Didn't work. Mandy didn't say another word to me, just gathered their things, took the last slice of cake like it was owed. That night, I didn't sleep much. Too many sounds. The clock ticking louder than usual. A loose gutter tapping outside. My old joints cracking every time I shifted. But mostly, it was the sound of that recording, playing again and again in my head. Not because it hurt, but because it reminded me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't bitter. I just finally heard the truth with my own ears. The morning light cut through the curtains in thin, gold threads. I didn't pull them back. I just sat on the edge of the bed, watching dust rise and fall in the glow. There's a kind of silence that comes after truth. Not peace, not relief. Just stillness. That was my house now. Still. Downstairs, the clock struck 7. One long chime, 2 short ones. Just like always. But the air had changed. Colin hadn't called. Mindy hadn't sent one of her clarifying texts. And I hadn't offered a single explanation to anyone. Because I didn't know one. By 9 o'clock, Dorian was back. Pressed shirt, leather folder in hand. Thought to me, you sure you want to be here for this part? Dorian, you asked I show up. You always said that. Simple, quiet. We didn't speak much over breakfast. Just spread butter on toast. Listened to the birds scratching at the feeder. Then at 10 sharp, the doorbell rang. I didn't need to check the window. I already knew the car outside. Black, too new, too clean. Colin stepped in first. No hey pops, no eye contact. Just a stiff nod and the faintest narrowing of his eyes when he saw Dorian at the table. Mandy followed, heels clicking sharp against the hardwood. She scanned the room like it offended her. Mandy. We came to talk. Me. Then said, I didn't offer them coffee. Colin stayed standing. Typical. He always felt stronger on his feet. Mandy, look. Maybe the check wasn't the right gesture, but airing dirty laundry at a party. But me. You insulted me in public. I responded in public. Colin, we didn't know you were recording. Me, that's the part that bothers you. Not what was said, just that you got caught. He shifted, opened his mouth, closed it again. I turned to Dorian. You have it? Dorian slid the folder across the table. 1 inch at a time, deliberate, like it weighed more than it should have. Colin hesitated, then picked it up. First page, trust revision. Second page, signature page. Mine, Dorian's, and a third, notarized, sealed, with the stamp of the county clerk. Third page, Schedule A, the asset list. That's where his eyes locked. Colin, you moved the properties. Me, all of them, title transfers were filed. 3 months ago. He looked at me now, not with anger.
Not shock.
Something closer to disbelief. Colin, the lake house too?
nee. Go on.
Mendy, you can't just... Dorian, it's not just, it's lawful. Everything here is certified. The living trust was restructured, and the successor trustee is no longer your husband. He didn't look up.
We didn't need to.
Mandy, this is retaliation. Me. No, this is accountability. I stood, walked to the credenza, pulled out the second folder, laid it next to Dorian's, this one thicker, older papers, more signatures, proof of a long game. Me, these are the amendments from before your mother passed. We discussed everything. She was the one who said, make sure the ones who care inherit, not just the ones who show up. That line hit something. By a flicker across Colin's brow. He'd always worshipped her memory, but only the convenient parts. Colin, you're breaking up the estate. No, I'm concentrating it on those who build, not those who take. Mandy, you mean your pet godson? Dorian didn't react. I did. Me. Say what you want about me, but don't insult the only person in this room who didn't lie to my face with a smile. The light shifted. A cloud passed outside, dimmed the room for a moment, and in that dimness, something came alive. My resolve. I walked to the side table, opened the drawer, pulled out one final envelope, unsealed. Still warm from the notary. This is the transfer of the community center share. The one you wanted for your development project, Colin. He reached for it.
I pulled it back.
Me? It's not going to you. It's going to the foundation. In your mother's name, Colin, Dad.
No.
He blinked, like the light was too harsh now. Me? I heard you. At the party, I heard what I meant to you. A liability, an obstacle, a wallet. And the worst part, I believed for years that you'd grow out of that. Colin didn't speak, didn't need to. His silence said it all. May, that center was her dream. You wanted to bulldoze it for condos. I'd rather burn it to the ground than sign it to you. Dorian stood, collected the folders, tucked them back into his bag. Charmanes make man's over. Mandy, you'll regret this. You're cutting your blood out of the legacy. What blood isn't what carries legacy. Choices do. They left without another word. Outside, the sun hit the porch at a slant. Bright, sharp, unforgiving. Dorian paused on the steps. Dorian, you handled that well? Me. It wasn't about handling. It was about finishing. He nodded. Me. You know what hurts? Dorian. What? That I waited until 70 to do it. He didn't say anything. Just rested his hand on my shoulder. Then got in his car and drove off. That evening, I sat in my study. No music. No distractions. Just the legal folders spread out before me. Catching the last light of the day. The papers glowed softly. The kind of light that made the ink look deeper. Permanent. I ran my fingers along the embossed notary seal. Rough, firm, cold. It felt real. After years of letting sentiment cloud judgment, this felt like clarity. Not revenge. Correction. I looked around the room. Family photos, book spines, one old wedding portrait that I hadn't moved in 30 years, and beside it, a frame with no photo. Just the words, "What you leave behind reveals who you really were." I sat there long after the sun disappeared. My fingers traced the edge of the leather folder. Smooth, cool, unyielding, like the decisions inside. The room was quiet, but I could still feel the hum, that low vibration you get when everything's too still. Old house bones settling, air shifting behind the walls. But mostly, it was the weight in my hands. Paper doesn't weigh much, but when it carries the last word, it presses down like stone. I closed the folder, ran my palm across the desk, the same mahogany surface I'd written my first loan check on, decades ago. Funny, I built so many futures from this very seat. You ever thought I'd have to build a defense from it too? The call came in just after 8 a.m. I was in the garden. The soil was damp. Morning dew clung to my gloves. I'd been trimming back the lavender, my wife's favorite. Phone buzzed in my shirt pocket. I wiped my hands on the apron and answered without checking the name. Colin, you froze the account. Me, good morning to you too. Colin, Dad, don't play games. We were flagged trying to move the investment balance. I said nothing. Colin, you triggered a hold on the joint LLC disbursement. The trust filed a challenge. Me, you're not a trustee anymore. You were removed in April. Colin, we had plans, construction partners lined up. You said that land was going to remain untouched. Nay. And then you called it dead dirt in an email. Don't forget, Colin. Paper remembers. There was a pause. Then, Colin, you're doing this to hurt me. Me? No. I'm doing this to protect what matters. You just happen to be in the way. He hung up. I set the phone down on the garden bench, went back to trimming. The scent of crushed lavender filled the air. Sharp, clean, honest. 2 hours later, I sat at the bank. Marcia, my advisor of 23 years, slid the final notarized doc across the polished oak counter. Marcia? That's the 2A designation finalized. Colin no longer has rights to access or request asset shifts. Everything now flows through the successor clause. Dorian's copy is locked. Marcia bolted, And the county records have updated titles on all remaining properties. I nodded. Me. And the contingency clause. Marcia, if Colin or any associated entity attempts legal reversal or files a claim on estate assets, the trust auto triggers a secondary restriction. Locks down everything for 7 years. She smiled gently. Marcia, you built it smart, Bernard. I looked down at my hands. Fingers slightly curled from arthritis. Calloused. Weathered, but still steady. Me. I built it to last. That afternoon, Mandy tried her turn. She showed up unannounced.
No Colin this time.
She carried herself like a lawyer entering a boardroom. Maddie, we need to discuss the implications of your recent financial maneuvers. I held the door open, just wide enough for her to see that Dorian was sitting at the dining table again. Papers neatly spread out, pen in hand. Mandy didn't step in. Me. I've already discussed it. With the people I trust. Mandy, you're cutting your own son out of his rightful future. Me cut himself out when he stopped thinking this family was worth more than leverage. Mandy, he's your blood. Creamy. So is my cholesterol. Doesn't mean I keep it around. That one landed. She clenched her bag tighter. Me Colin's accounts are locked. The joint partnerships are severed. Every family asset under trust control is protected under my directive. Mandy, he'll fight this. Nia, he already lost. I let the silence sit. She didn't blink. Then she did something strange. And Mandy admired you, you know. I tilted my head. No. He envied me. She said nothing, just turned, walked back to her car, didn't even look over her shoulder. That night, I finally slept. Really slept. Sheets cool against my skin. No tossing, no turning. When I woke, it was just past 5. Light still pale through the window. The air in the room cool. I reached for the drawer beside the bed, opened it, and sighed the old keys. To the cabin, the one Colin used to beg to visit when he was young. The one he once said he'd turn into something profitable someday. It stayed locked. Now, untouched. Because some things aren't for profit. They're for peace. And some legacies are better off protected by distance. I closed the drawer, swung my legs over the side. Felt the rugs weave under my bare feet, warm, rough, real. That's what rebuilding felt like. Not grand. Not loud. Just solid. The church hall was full.
Not packed.
But full. Plastic chairs aligned in neat rows. Children tugging at their collars. Old friends with thermoses of tea. A few community board members I hadn't seen in years. The scholarship announcement had gone out last week. In honor of Evelyn Cartwright, lifelong educator, volunteer, and mother, a full-ride scholarship for first-generation students will be awarded annually, funded by the Evelyn Legacy Foundation. Colin's name was nowhere on the paperwork, nor on the donation plaque, nor in the press release. He hadn't donated, hadn't even asked to, but I'd made sure to reserve him a front row seat. The air inside was warm, soft voices echoed gently off the high walls. I walked in through the side door. All eyes turned, but it wasn't like my birthday. This time the glances held something else.
Acknowledgement.
A hand touched my elbow. Lacey. We're ready. I nodded. Dorian adjusted the mic on the podium, tested it with a soft tap. Greg, the same cousin who'd warned Colin about the hot mic, stood beside the projector. Funny how allies emerge when the dust settles. I took the podium. No notes, no speech, just truth. Me, thank you for coming. Today is not about grief. It's not about loss. It's about returning something to the people who deserve it. The light from the stained glass caught the edge of the podium. Red, blue, gold. It looked like fire or redemption. Me. Evelyn gave everything to this community, and for a while I forgot how to honor that. I let convenience guide me. I trusted words over actions. Pause. Me, but not anymore. I looked to my left. Greg nodded. The projector clicked. A photograph appeared. Evelyn at the blackboard, chalk in hand, children laughing. Then another. Evelyn at the community garden. Colin, a teenager, scowling in the background, arms crossed. Then the last one. A scanned image. The one Colin had handed me on my birthday. Projected, magnified, undeniable. Won $500 on a milestone birthday. A laugh escaped someone in the back row. Quickly swallowed. This was my son's birthday gift to me. A token gesture. One that came with a recorded conversation attached. One where he called me a liability, a dead investment. A few gasps. Someone shifted in their seat. Me. I show it to you not out of bitterness, but clarity. I held up an envelope. Me. This is the original trust document. The one where he once stood to inherit the family holdings. I opened it, pulled out a single sheet, ripped it one clean motion down the center. Me, this is not punishment. This is protection. Because legacy is not a hand-me-down. It's a responsibility. Colin stood near the back. He hadn't been in the front row after all. His voice was low, but it traveled. Colin, you're doing this for applause. I'm doing this because I'm done being quiet. Colin, this is public humiliation. Me? No, son. What you did at my party, that was humiliation. This is truth. Silence. Then Greg stepped forward. Greg, the foundation will launch this fall. Applications are open. First student announced on Evelyn's birthday. Applause now. Not thunderous, but real. Afterward, people filed out slowly. Lacey stayed close. Dorian helped an older board member with her coat. Colin didn't come up to me, didn't speak, just stood by the doorway, watching as everyone thanked me, hugged me, remembered Evelyn. And then he left. No handshake, no words. And that was okay, because I wasn't waiting for any. That evening, I sat in the living room, fire low, blanket over my knees, Dorian and Lacey across from me. Lacey, you sure about all this, Dad? Mir, I've never been more sure. Dorian, they'll talk. Some people will take his side. Maya, let them. I looked at the empty chair across from me, the one Evelyn used to sit in. He handed me a check that said I wasn't worth remembering, so I gave him something else. They waited. Me an opportunity to become the man he thought he already was. Silence. Then the fire cracked. Later, I stepped out onto the porch, sky wide, air still. No noise, no lights in Colin's wing of the property. He'd left it behind when the papers cleared. I liked it better this way. Clean lines, no shadows, just space to breathe, to rebuild, to rest. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.